Hey everybody, time now for my 2014 college previews to resume, and we're talking SEC East football, Florida Gator style. That's right, we're heading to the swamp, and we're trying to figure out how in the heck did Florida go 4-8 last year? I mean, their defense was good enough for the team to have at least a 9, if not a 10 win season. They should have gone 10-2 with the way that defense played. Well, of course, when your offense only averages 19 points a game, and when you have struggles with teams like Georgia Southern at home, not even an FBS opponent, but an FCS opponent, you lose to them at home, yeah, there's a lot of problems. And, of course, in Florida's defense, if we're to add to it, injuries were a major problem, too. Over a dozen season-ending injuries at some point. So Will Muschamp back for another year, and I know a lot of Florida fans moaned about that. We'll have a new offensive coordinator. Kurt Roper, who helped guide Duke's offense to a 10-win season a year ago, we'll try to do the same thing, if not better, in the swamp. The spread offense. That's right, a new offense for Florida and for quarterback Jeff Driscoll, who returns, although he was injured last year as well. Driscoll, when he was there, though, 70% of his passes were completed, but he still has to prove that he can complete passes, down the field. He can complete the short ones, but let's see if he can complete those medium to long-range passes. It'll help, though, for Driscoll to have back Kelvin Taylor in the backfield to alleviate the pressure. Kelvin, the son of Fred Taylor, a legendary running back for the Gators in the late 90s. Receiving-wise, you got Quentin Dunbar back, and he's been an impact receiver for Florida. But two of their other receivers are gone, so now complementing Dunbar will be a couple of new guys in LaTroy Pittman and also DeMarcus Robinson. At the tight end position, the guy that they're pretty high on is Clay Burton. And offensive line-wise, 3 starters return. That's your entire left line and, by the way, your center. Now, the right line, of course, will be the inexperienced part. But at least one guy Florida is really high on, although he's still a raw project, and that is Trenton Brown, 6 feet 8 inches tall, 360 pounds. So if this guy has really come along, since he's arrived, watch out. Florida's offensive line will be much improved. Defensively, I don't know if the defensive line, other than maybe getting a better pass rush, can improve anymore. I mean, they were very good last year, including Dante Fowler Jr. Also, back Jonathan Bullard, and also, remember Darius Cummings and Leon Orr. The entire defensive line again returns for the Gators. I rank them up there with USC and Ohio State as far as the best defensive lines in the country. The linebacking core I thought was just average last year. So there's obviously room for improvement. So let's see how Michael Taylor as well as Antonio Morrison do as they return at linebacker. The corner position, one spot is completely solidified, and that is Vernon Hargreaves III, the guy who's had major hype on him ever since high school when he was the #1 corner in the country, and he's not disappointed ever since. And Hargreaves, he brings that Florida style of coverage, that is tight man-to-man, hardly any separation. And Florida has the athletes to do that. Not very many schools do. So expect Florida to, again, play that man-to-man defense, making it hard for opposing offenses to try to complete those passes. Special teams-wise, this is going to be an area where we have to see Florida improve and improve big time because last year they were bad. Kicking-wise, Austin Harden made less than half of his kicks. So we'll see if he can get his starting job back. And also Kyle Christie, and I didn't think we'd say this because at one point he was a Ray Guy finalist for best punter in the country. He was inconsistent last year and at one point got benched. So we'll see what his forecast is heading into 2014. But special teams-wise, this is a very encouraging area. Andre Dubose. Probably, if you've never heard of him, well, maybe because he didn't play last year. Supposed to, but had a knee injury. Should be back. Should be ready to go. He should be returning kicks and punts, and he'll be a valuable asset for Florida in that perspective. Schedule-wise for the Gators, it's the SEC, so you know you're going to get your fair share of competition. But at least the first 3 games, it doesn't look that way. First 2 opponents are outside the conference, so you should win them both. They're against teams that Florida should be able to beat. Even the SEC opener should be a win. You're hosting Kentucky, and it better be, or you're going to be in for a pretty long year. Now, the next game is at Alabama. You don't get Arkansas this year out of the West. You get Alabama. A little bit of a difference, and you play them at Tuscaloosa. So, loss right there. But, hey, if Florida can get out of that game virtually injury-free and play competitive, play within 2 touchdowns or less, that shows you that Florida's come a ways. The game against LSU, which I think is the next game, is at home. But even though you might be an underdog in that game, you shouldn't be a big underdog so long as Florida just as long as Alabama didn't blow your socks off that one game in Tuscaloosa. Those other home games for Florida, not too bad. You get Missouri at home, okay? South Carolina, they're a tough opponent, but you get them later in the year, so that should help out. The Georgia game, that's a rivalry game, so throw the records out. That game at the cocktail party in Jacksonville, and there's the matchup against Florida State at the end of the year. That's a loss as well. That's the season finale. Florida, best case scenario, other than the Florida State and Alabama games, I got this squad going 10-2, best case scenario, because I think the games on the schedule, even the ones where they might be underdogs in, like LSU and South Carolina, for example, at home, the Swamp's a very difficult place to win, so who's to say they can't win those games, as well as the other ones. Worst case scenario, it goes just like last year where the injury bug returns and the spread offense was not the answer. This team goes 6-6 or worse, then Will Muschamp will be out as head coach. It's Florida, and they're not going to tolerate back-to-back years of just plain average, if not pathetic football. Likely scenario, 8-4 for the Gators. That's going to be my official prediction. 8-4 with a third-place finish in the SEC East and a 5-3 conference record. Alabama and Florida State, in my opinion, are unwinnable games. They're just not at that level yet. Not to say that they can't get back there, because they still get good athletes, but not this year. And there's going to be a couple of other games that I think will trip them up. But this is Florida. They are not a 4-8 squad. I think last year was just an aberration. And I think they will bounce back, and they'll have a 4-game improvement. And I don't know at what point it will happen, but they will get back on top in the SEC East, but not this year. That's my look at Florida. I'll have another preview coming up in the near future. We thank you for watching, everybody.